to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Tuesday, tax day.
Oh, man. Sorry, everybody.
April 15th, 2025. The Fantasy Footballers
The self.
are back. Yeah. So you can listen up, listen in. We got our early running back rankings show today. Jason Moore is here. Mike, the Fantasy Hitman. I'm Andy Holloway.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be a really excellent show. I can always tell based upon your introduction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I set the tone?
You set the tone well today. You came in a little longer than usual on your little yell-in.
You keep track? I'm sure Kyle keeps track.
Oh, Kyle's got the stopwatch out.
Figured out. Good weekend, gentlemen? Ready to talk football?
We over-under Jason's Andy? Or over-under Andy's welcome scream?
You know, based on the things I see people betting these days, like which arm goes into the green jacket for Rory McIlroy.
No. Oh, is that a real one?
Which arm goes in first?
Which one won?
Which one? It's got to be right arm, right?
It was left arm.
Oh man, they
got
up.
You got
You would have lost so much money, Mike. Yeah, you know.
Because that's where I'm doing it.
There's the comedy of betting on absolutely anything that can happen. But even more ridiculous than that is watching people root for the thing that you can't believe people bet on. So, watching them, a couple guys on an Instagram reel or a live that are going, left arm, come on, left arm, come on, the research says it's going to be left arm, come on.
It's so much fun. I mean, it's dumb.
Yeah, me and Jason were in on tails.
We're
at
all
the Super
tails
Bowl.
never fails,
Yeah.
and it makes that non-playing time
so dumb.
something to watch. You're just like, I mean, who cares about the coin flip except when you need it to land on tails?
Well, yeah, if you want to get a kind of a betting market out on the welcome in, you can do that.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Like I said, we have early top 15 running back rankings on the show today. We got NFL news to catch you up on. We got the draft here
Very
less
soon.
than 2 weeks away. Right at 2 weeks? No,
it starts on Thursday.
less. Yeah. It's coming soon. Rumors every day. You never know what's real.
Correct. Oh, I know, because
we're always surprised.
And there are legitimately every year, there are smoke screens. And you know, sometimes that's used like, oh, they're bringing these guys in. They're looking at wide receivers from their top 30 visits. Maybe it's a smoke screen. I don't think those are smoke screens, but when there is just blabbermouths really kind of saying what they're looking for, I feel like
there's no benefit.
That would
to
be
do
an
it.
amazing name for like one of the primetime sports shows.
Blabbermouths.
Just call it Blabbermouths, and
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do, isn't it? UltimateDraftKit.com. Head over there, get access to the Dynasty Pass. It will be updated for the third time right after the draft, and we get a lay of the land, and we see which players are gaining value based on their draft destinations. And there's all the team opportunity charts in there, so you have a chance to get in there and see what teams are needing what. And Mike, you've been paying attention like I have to these visits, right? We've got
the top 30 visits. We're trying to figure some stuff out. I think we've got a little bit of we got something. We got a fish on the hook here. We're going to talk about all that stuff on the Dynasty Pod this week.
Yeah, and Kyle is half insane right now because he's been just completely digging into that level of data, and it's fun. Some of the stuff is actually really interesting to see how these top 30 visits correlate or don't correlate to position groups and whether it's a first-round pick or whether that someone that made one of these top 30 visits gets drafted by the team. And the funny thing is, if we just wait, just like, I don't know, a week and a half, none of it will matter. We'll know where everyone is.
Yeah, but that's no fun.
I mean, the one that stood out was the running back visits for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Sure.
And we've got a top 15 running back show today.
Chase Brown is on it.
Chase Brown is in that top top 15 as of right now.
Yeah, but if Travion Henderson, one of the players brought in for a top 30 visit, gets drafted by the Bengals, Chase Brown will not be in the top 15.
No, he will not. So, yeah, we've all individually gone through and ranked our, this is pre-UDK, statting every player out, but looking at kind of where we have them right now. And we all went through and individually ranked probably around the first 30 running backs and then grabbed our consensus top 15, and we'll share that with you on today's episode. No quick question for the day because we want to get into the rankings, so we'll jump right into news.
News and notes from around the league.
Uh-oh.
Well, might not be clicking that send in the car button.
Yeah.
The NFL Network's Ian Rappaport has reported that Derek Carr is believed to have suffered a significant injury to his throwing shoulder. Suffered it last year, and it threatens his availability for the upcoming season. And that the Saints have been preparing for the draft knowing about this injury. So some of the – there have been quarterback –
Sounds like we got a blabbermouth.
Some quarterback rumors were already swirling around the Saints. Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, discussions around those players. Suddenly you find out your starter might not even be available, who has so much money committed to him now.
Oh, yeah. The dead cap this year and next year would be a catastrophic number. I think next year's dead cap, you can look it up, but I want to say it's around $65 million.
And that's next year?
And that's next year. That's not if they cut him now. Obviously, they're not going to cut him now. Nick Underhill, one of the best reporters over there for the Saints, he was tweeting about this, talking about like this is a big situation. And so I don't subscribe to his paywalled content, so I don't know all the details. But he was insinuating that this is a bigger deal than what it seemed like a couple weeks ago.
We got $80 million this year for Derek Carr, should they cut him, which that's not going to happen. And next year, next year it's still at 59. But don't worry, when we get to 2027, if they don't do anything in the contract, it's only a cool 40.
This is a team that has 2 third-round picks.
Year.
They have 2/3, 2/4, and a first and a second-round pick. They do have the ability to move around. So Cam Ward's not going to be in the cards for them.
No.
And drafting at 9, depending on who you follow, that might seem too soon for the other 2 quarterback prospects. I don't know. I think they're going to take one.
In the first?
In the first. But if they don't, if Shedeur Sanders falls out of the first round and they're sitting at 40 and they have 2/3 and 2/4 to trade up and take him with the first pick of the second round or something like that, the solution that they have on the roster right now is, Spencer Rattler,
yeah,
Ben DiNucci.
The solution is not on the roster.
Dude, Jake Haynes because they anus, man. Come on.
That's a fun one.
Jake
he is
Hayner.
Still there. He's still on the roster. Yeah, the depth chart behind Derek Carr, they went winless in the games that Carr did not play last year.
Oh, wow.
And so this is a team that needs Derek Carr there, or they need a future quarterback. Personally, I don't think there is one available.
That's where, you and I disagree on that.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, okay, I think Cam Ward could be a legit starter. I do think Shedeur Sanders can be a legit starter, but I think he needs to end up in a really good destination. I'm not sure if the Saints are there. We had just talked about Alvin Kamara on a recent episode.
Yes.
And Derek Carr's health issue came out really after that as far as into the public sphere, and that changes my belief on Alvin Kamara's value. All those Derek Carr checkdowns with that bum shoulder, delicious. But
we also disagree on Jackson Dart,
right?
Which you were pretty
I do not think he's a first-round talent.
You were pretty chill about him on
Have
the show.
Have you gone back?
I did go back and I watched several more games, and I am not bullish on Jackson Dart. I don't think he's a first-round quarterback.
As in talent, but he might get drafted in the first round.
Right.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
He might go there. I wouldn't have him graded that way.
We had some other contract updates. The Browns bringing back Joe Flacco on a 1-year deal, just $4 million, up to $13 million if seemingly he became a starter during the year.
Which who knows? The newest thing that came out very recently was the Browns are unlikely to take Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if you mentioned that, Andy, when we were saying it, but
I still think it's Kirk Cousins. That's who I think is going to Cleveland.
It could be Kirk Cousins. They would have to trade draft capital, and then figure out how they're going to pay the salary.
I think it's already done.
Do you?
I do. That's based on Myles Garrett's re-signing with the team and interviews about his knowledge of who's going to play quarterback for them this year, and just putting and my thought that Kirk Cousins won't be sitting on that bench in Atlanta when all's said and done. I can't imagine that Myles Garrett's excited about, I know Joe Flacco's signing a $4 million deal. You're not going to know who you would get in the draft. I think it's Kirk Cousins. We'll find out.
You get Kirk Cousins and Travis Hunter there. That would be a really interesting offense.
We still think Kirk Cousins is good?
I think Kirk Cousins.
The dude got benched for a team trying to get into the playoffs.
I think that another year removed from that Achilles injury could be good for him. He's not the age where I think he has to have fallen off. Obviously, he had a massive injury, and he played like crap down the stretch. But he also had – it was this last year where he had a 500-yard throwing game.
He did. He had that one incredible game.
Yeah, it was like 504 or something like that. And so, I don't know. I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is going to take a team to the Super Bowl. I'm just saying if you compare Kirk Cousins to Kenny Pickett, it's a much better upgrade.
Allen Lazard going to stay with the Jets on a rework contract. Terrace Marshall Jr. This is in here?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Kyle's here, so.
The Eagles signed Terrace Marshall Jr. He probably won't.
Go get that ring, young man.
Probably won't make the team.
He won't make the team.
Mo Alley Cox.
Now, I just want to remind people that Terrace Marshall Jr. is still only 24 years old.
He's 24 years old.
Oh, yeah, so his future is bright, Mike.
More total receptions rest of his career. Marshall Jr., Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mo Alley Cox, 1-year deal to come back to the Colts, just so we can hit this.
Gigantor.
And Tyreek Hill, weekly domestic dispute took place once again in a high-rise condominium in Florida.
Yeah, the NFL, they're tracking down the 911 audio. This,
regardless of this terrible accusation, we were just putting together our top 15 rankings. Well, behind the scenes we put together our top 50 rankings, and Tyreek was the most interesting name to me prior to this news of what do you believe? What do you believe? Last year he played hundreds of more snaps than he did the year prior, had half as many yards. What's the cause? And you go, oh well, he was missing Tua for a handful of games, but Tua played the majority of the season. The
injury was surgery.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the Dolphins had more passing yards last year than they did before. So yeah, is it the wrist? Is whatever the reason, he sucked last year for Tyreek Hill standards. So he's a year older, and he was lower in my rankings than I thought he would be.
All right, we'll be doing wide receiver rankings, the top 15 on Thursday, so you can tune in for that. But right now, it's time for running backs.
Running backs.
All right, we are going to go 1 through 15. We'll keep it fairly brief, just an overview before the draft of where we have the running backs sitting right now.
So, yeah, it's like a vibes check.
Yeah, I never know where you guys are on certain players at this time of year, so it's a chance to see where you have them ranked, where I am thinking about certain players, and, some interesting results here. We also had some research done on what makes a top 15 running back in general for fantasy football purposes. If you look at the last 4 years, the averages for a top 15 running back, you're going to be at about 19 opportunities a game, which puts you at around 300 opportunities. Reminder, an opportunity is that's going to be a
target or a carry.
There you go. Rushing attempts, you're normally in the 240s. 10 rushing touchdowns. That's the average. The average.
85% of top 15 fantasy running backs have at least 9 touchdowns.
59 targets, 47 receptions, 350-plus receiving yards, a couple of receiving touchdowns, and a fantasy points per game of around 15.
And one of the things I find the most interesting is that all the top 15 running backs, they were on NFL teams that averaged 9.7 wins. So they're on winning teams. Only 8% of the top 15 running backs over the last 4 years were on teams with fewer than 7 wins. And so there are some, right? It wasn't 0%, But if you're making an odds bet and your odds, are sitting down at 8%, that is a losing bet. And so later in the draft, when you're looking at Ramondre Stevenson or Brian Robinson Jr., maybe Ramondre is a better player, but I would let those late picks tie break to me for the better team, the better offense. Who's going to win more games?
Also, just for the record, as we march through these players, we're not putting any rookies in the initial rankings, whereas it's very, very possible. I mean, Genty will be in our top 15.
Oh, for sure.
And it's possible there's another name or two, depending on the landing spot. So no rookies in the initial rankings. We'll do that after the draft. But we'll start here at number 1. He's number 1 for both of you. He's sitting at 2 on my list at Saquon Barkley.
I went back and forth flipping my 1 to your 1 over and over and over and over.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, my number 1 is Bijan, who we'll talk about.
I'm switching right
Wait,
now. Right
really?
when we start.
I'll hold out.
All right.
Saquon Barkley, I was looking this up. He's rushed for 20-plus yards 24 times over the last 2 years, which ties Derrick Henry. So you get that big play stuff that you saw in Philly last year that you didn't have as many of those in New York because of offensive line play. But this was a Cinderella dream come true season for Saquon Barkley. Everything, you talk about looking at both sides of a situation. Free agent, signed by Philly, leaving New York, older than some of the other running backs. Everything you could have possibly thought could go right for him went right last year. Played for the number 1 offensive line, was number 1 in yards before contact. So, again, that wasn't breaking tackles. That was literally gaining yards before anybody got an opportunity to tackle. So making the right reads. 66% of his rushing yards came before contact.
Yeah, I mean, it was a perfect storm for him. The total touchdowns were awesome. The only negative is that he was not very involved in the passing game. No, it was irrelevant, wasn't needed. He was the running back 1 in fantasy points, scored enough touchdowns, got enough yardage. But it does mean if things go poorly for him in the touchdown category, which that can be a category that bounces back and forth from year to year, then he doesn't seem to have that pass – he's certainly got the pass-catching ability, but with Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense, they don't seemingly use Saquon in that way. He only had 33 receptions. That would be like the only knock. And when I kept going back and forth between – is it Saquon or is it Bijan as my number 1? It's really the passing work that was like the tiebreaker to me.
345 rushing attempts is
that's a lot.
A massive amount, and it's way more than he's ever had. He had never broken 300. He got to 345.
Really? He had never had more than 300 carries.
Not that I see.
Not in attempts, no.
No, he got to 295 in 2022, but never over 300. He also had 13 rushing touchdowns. So, when you talk about things that are prime for some variability, the long touchdown runs, the total touchdowns on the ground, but it's all in front of him right now.
Yeah, I don't it's very easy and very common. Whoever finishes RB1 last year, you frequently do put them at RB1 this year. But like this in particular, it's like I don't – Saquon Barkley, injury aside, is like it's going to be a success. Let's say somehow the Eagles aren't nearly as good as they were when they were winning a Super Bowl last year. Like, they're going to be very, very good. And the fall off for Barkley, to me, is like he's safe, where I don't worry about that team imploding. And maybe he's at 9 rushing touchdowns, but I'm locking him at 1.
We still haven't had the vote for the tush push.
Right.
That'll be in May. And so that if the tush push gets banned, and you're talking about a guy who, in Jalen Hurts, who has 10 tush push touchdowns on the docket going away, even if 5 of those turn into handoffs for Barkley, that is a real needle mover.
That would be an interesting discussion on the implications, because it would help Barkley. It would probably help A.J. Brown around the goal line as well.
I wonder if they would just find a sneak play.
Yeah,
well, he can just he could.
That's what I mean. Okay, fine, we won't push.
He could just sneak the way Brady used to sneak.
Brady didn't squat 600 pounds, and it's like I wonder what his conversion was on 4th and 1. Kyle, you should look that up because I feel like it's got to be
Brady was unbelievable.
It's got to be like 90%.
He just read the right gaps. All right, and number 2 is Bijan. He's number 1 on, I guess, now Jason in my list.
That's right.
Mike has him at 3. I tried to look up an interesting little fact or stat on all of our top 15 running backs. For Bijan, the one that I found is not only – or things that surprised me. He had the second most total touches in the NFL last year, and which was just behind Saquon, who we talked about. He was only stuffed on 14% of carries, which was the second best number in the entire league.
So freaking good, man.
He's younger, obviously. But when you talk about, Mike, you brought up the stability in Philly, the offensive pieces. They're locked up. You know what you're getting. The offensive line. There are more variables in Atlanta. Now, it's hard to repeat as number 1 at the running back position. So this is a player in Bijan that has every ability to be that number 1. But you're also going to get a whole season with, Kirk Cousins is not going to be the starter. But Bijan should be the backbone, right? And he was game script proof for Atlanta last year. It was really impressive. Highest success rate ever for a running back with 250-plus carries. He was solid.
And, I mean, he closed out the year. So Michael Penix played
the last 3 games.
16, 17, and 18, where Bijan was running back 8, 5, and 2. Now, 2 of those 3 teams, you had the New York Giants and you had the Carolina Panthers. So, and one of those teams was Washington. So RB5 against Washington, playoff team. The other 2 teams that you're like, we should beat the crap out of this team. But but it's just it's nice to see they really, really turned to Bijan at the end.
In the
second half of the year.
In that 3-game sample with Michael Penix, very small, but we love to extrapolate those out.
Yeah, we do.
You want to hear
a fun one?
We got a fun one. Well, we got a nice 69 targets, so that passing volume was still there.
I wish that was higher.
You wish it was higher, but it couldn't be because he was on pace for 380 carries, 2,006 rushing yards, and 34 touchdowns on the ground.
Bijan is strange to me because great player, incredible fantasy football player, but you got for this fantasy sandwich here, we got Saquon at the top, and then we got Jahmyr Gibbs next. It's like Bijan's not nearly as exciting as those.
No, he's not.
You just want the big breakaway touchdown runs, and Bijan has not had those yet.
Flash.
He still can. He flashes on every single play, but he just doesn't have that 70-yarder breakaway. I think that those are not predictable, but still can happen for him, and I think will happen.
I call them they're predictable with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Well, sure.
No, I think we've seen enough Bijan to know that that's not going to be the major.
It's not the major
part of his game.
But he's only had 2 seasons in the league so far. He's looked great on pretty much every carry, and he's about to peak. The best running back year or age for max peak is 24 years old. So he's currently 23.8 years old, I believe. No, 23.2.
He only ran for 10 or more yards on 11 of 121 carries. That was the 5th worst number in football.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So,
he doesn't get those. He just keeps gouging you.
What's amazing is his teammate, Tyler Algier, 4th best on those kind of carries, percentage-wise, of his carries.
Sure.
He doesn't get as many carries, but he managed.
The defenders are relaxing.
There ain't no way they're giving this one to Algier. Oh, they did it again.
Yeah, so number 1, Saquon, number 2, Bijan so far, and we'll take a break. We'll jump into the rest of the rankings. Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs comes in at number 3. Mike, you have him up at number 2. I've got thoughts on Gibbs. One of the fun facts I looked up, number 1 in EPA per play out of all running backs.
That makes sense.
So if you're not familiar with that stat, that is expected points added per play. It's a metric that quantifies how much a team's performance on a play changes when you give somebody an opportunity. That is almost double the number of Saquon. He was by far number 1 in the NFL. We all know what the talent and ability of Jahmyr Gibbs is, but when I got in here and I looked at these names, there's not that many names in the top running backs that I feel amazingly 100% confident about. There aren't.
But Gibbs is one, correct or not?
I'm still no.
You're not. You
Saquon and
Bijan,
and I think to some degree Derrick Henry.
Christian McCaffrey?
No, because I still Christian McCaffrey, sure, he could be, but you're nervous about it. That team has been dismantled. You're figuring out the quarterback. You have different offensive pieces. He's been hurt. I'm just saying I love Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do not expect one bit that this team tries to philosophically change with David Montgomery.
No, they don't. And if you look at the last 4, so David Montgomery got injured in week 15. So 15 through 18, that last month of the season, Gibbs was nuclear. In half PPR, he's scoring 30 fantasy points a week. Prior to that, he was fantastic. No one's complaining about having him, but he wasn't that elite.
He wasn't number 3 overall.
Right. He wasn't 16.9 fantasy points per game. That's pretty nice, but it's not 29 point something else. When David Montgomery was there, it's sad and frustrating how greedy we are watching those two players and being like, I want more. They're doing awesome things. But I do see your point, Andy, of he's not going to be what we saw at the end of the year when Monty is there. The Lions are not going away from David Montgomery.
He's still talent-wise, I think if he had the amount of opportunities that we expect Bijan to get, I would have Gibbs ranked higher.
Yeah, me too.
Gibbs, I think, is a better fantasy football running back than Bijan. If
per
opportunities were equal.
You're saying
sure.
per touch,
correct.
He's the better.
Literally, he's number 1 in expected or EPA per play. So it's just not. I don't have the confidence that he's going to get the opportunities that guarantee him number 3 as opposed to 6 or 7. One of the funniest stats that I didn't even realize you could track was scoring the first touchdown in a game. Derrick Henry scored the first touchdown in a game 7 times this year, right?
Uh-huh.
No, number 2 was?
It's got to be David Montgomery.
David
Montgomery started every game.
Yeah. 6 times this year. He was the first touchdown scored in the entire game.
Even with David Montgomery and everything that's there, because I don't disagree. I don't think this is.
And by the way, we all have him ranked 2 or 3. So this is not a.
It's not a full Gibbs takeover, but I'm also factoring in, over the last 3 years for the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff's yardage, it's gone up, but it's 3 years ago he's at 4,440 yards. Last year almost 4,600. This year just over 4,600. But those first 2 that I was quoting, he was throwing touchdowns at a 5% rate. He jumped up to almost 7% this past year. I expect that to come back down to around 5 or the mid 5s.
Yeah, but I don't think that just switches over to running
I do.
To rushing touchdowns. I think that the total amount of touchdowns that the Lions had this year, which was the number 1 in the league,
it will come down.
That number will come down. So I don't expect it to just go, well, he's going to throw fewer, so they're going to rush for more. They're losing Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. They lost their secondary offensive coach as well. So
do you think does the identity of the team change at all? Is Jared Goff throwing for 4,500 yards again, or are we getting?
I think they're going to try to run.
I
think they're going to try to run back how they have been playing the last few years. They did bring their new offensive coordinator was with the Detroit Lions 3 years ago, so I think they're wanting to keep it intact. But yeah, it's really just a matter of how many opportunities is Jahmyr Gibbs going to get when David Montgomery is healthy. If you look at last year, he got 16.9 opportunities. I talked about that's how many points. Both numbers are accurate. 16.9 opportunities per game with David Montgomery, 23.3 without him.
A couple things there you pointed out, or we talked about 19.2, was it, or 19.9 opportunities per game is the average for a top 15 running back. So obviously he's hyper efficient. It was also interesting talking about Bijan. They won 8 games last year, just above that 7 threshold that only 8% of running backs fit. Number 4 is Christian McCaffrey. You guys have him at 4. I got him at 5. I think that's a little bit higher than where people are putting him now, but I think later it will change if he is on the field at training camp and looks perfectly fine. What are the positives and negatives of CMC, Jason?
I mean, the positives are he's the most valuable fantasy asset over the last decade when he is out on the field. He is 2 positions in one. He will fill as much in the receiving game as a good fantasy wide receiver and as much in the running game as a good fantasy running back. So it's just, if he's healthy, he's the dude. He hasn't aged out. He's 28.8 years old. He's got some fresh legs at the moment. Honestly,
they're not tired.
Yeah, when
they might be hurt.
When I was going through my rankings, it was like, this is where I would take him. If those three guys are gone, I'm so excited for those three. I put Gibbs in the excitement for me. Then there's question marks for everyone. Christian McCaffrey is going to be the same conversation we had last year. Like, if he's on the field, he's great. He's worthy of being the number one running back. They still have a lot of money invested in him. This is a team that odds to go to the Super Bowl still really surprisingly high. I don't see it that way, but this is a team whose expectations is to be good.
Well, the team that has higher odds to make the Super Bowl that I don't want to make the same mistake on is who I have ranked higher than him, and he's our next name on the list, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was the running back 2 last year, insanely consistent, 347 opportunities, 325 carries. I feel like that is the layup that people didn't want to take last year. The way that some people messed up the Saquon and the Derrick Henry moving team situation and didn't trust the player, didn't trust the Super Bowl winning, structure around them. I'm not making that mistake again here. I feel really good about Derrick Henry, so I have him a spot higher, and I just feel like it's not as sexy of a pick, but it's the right pick.
Yeah, I mean, right now, looking at sleeper ADP, Derrick Henry is fourth running back taken, so he's where you've got him. And Christian McCaffrey is actually the 8th.
Yeah,
I think people are really scared.
Nervous. Yep.
I don't blame anyone for being scared, and I don't blame anyone for just saying I'm out. Like, I don't want to hold the bag again, especially if you had the experience last year. I have, as of this moment, my decision is I'm in. I want to play for the win, and if he's done this before where he's been injured and lost a season, and then he just comes back and is awesome.
Derrick Henry in wins, 22 fantasy points a game, and losses, 12.8. That has been the story of his career, where he's 19.2 in every win and 9.8 in losses. Baltimore is currently tied with the second highest odds of making the Super Bowl, just behind Philly, tied with the Chiefs and Buffalo. Henry they're just going to re-roll this.
Yeah.
One more year in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like I said, he scored the first touchdown more than anybody in football.
He does feel like the easy layup who you don't see him as the running back 1 for the season.
That's the issue.
You don't see him as this game script proof,
Correct.
Bijan versus Derrick Henry. You're much more excited and comfortable to have Bijan. But, man, Derrick Henry, I don't know how it goes wrong.
Right. And so that's why he's in the category to me with Bijan and with Saquon. Now, Al chimed in real quick in our chat, so I'm going to go to him. You said, quote, there is no way I would draft CMC with an early pick this year.
Correct.
Can you tell me why? Because I think this is important. It might be indicative of why his sleeper ADP is where it's at, but why wouldn't you take him?
Just injury risk. I'm not playing that game again. I've been burned too many times, and
the loss,
the
loss of McCaffrey is the worst possible feeling you could have.
Yeah, lighting your one-on-one on fire.
Speaking of lighting, the lighting in Deucer's Alley is obviously not good, because if it was better, you could see how yellow you are, Jeremy.
Real Brock Bowers.
Yeah, you chicken.
You could say I told you so at the end of the season.
Howard. Okay.
What's interesting about specifically Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey is, if you said Derrick Henry is the RB1 at the end of 25, I would be very surprised to go to number 1. Like, top 5, easy. Top 3, yeah, I get it. But number 1, where that would surprise me. If you say Christian McCaffrey's the number 1 running back in the year, I will have no surprise from that. But then on the inverse is, if you tell me that Christian McCaffrey screwed everybody again because an injury was not fully reported, I go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So it's this weird it feels like an all or nothing.
Well, I think what happens, let me ask you this, because I know we got to get through 15 names, but I want to stay here with the McCaffrey question of, I think they'll draft somebody that you like at running back right now in the college game.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do that.
I do too.
And I think that it's in their interest at McCaffrey's age, coming off of multiple little issues, right? We came into the draft last year and everyone literally said, we're not worried about the camp injury. We'll just do it because we don't want to be caught without McCaffrey on our team as a number 1 overall back, and it burnt us.
Yep.
If they draft that other player, it's in their interest to not use McCaffrey to the same volume as they did in the past.
Maybe, yeah, and perhaps they will do that, but they've always had competent backups. It hasn't been, and they still chose to utilize Christian McCaffrey how they have. I think
that might have cost them a season of Christian McCaffrey.
It could have, but also if they draft a running back, we'll see where they draft him. If it's day 1 or day 2, great. If it's day 3, that's going to be less worrisome. But I think it's more about their future if they draft a running back than it is about giving Christian McCaffrey less work.
I mean, what a crazy 5-year stretch for McCaffrey, because it's 3 games played. Then it's 7 games played. Then 17, 16, and now 4 games played.
Yeah, and honestly, it should be a 7-year stretch because if you go back after his rookie season, he's the running back 3, the running back 1, injured the next year, injured the next year. Then he's back healthy. The running back 2, the running back 1, injured the next year, and that was last year. So it's like if he plays, he's great.
Yeah. Where I'm on with the drafting of a backup is I don't think they'll spend a day 2 on it. The situation is strange. You had Jordan Mason, who at least at the beginning of the year was like, this is a very competent player for you. Like, in that run, I think he was leading. Talking about Jordan Mason, was leading the league in rushing yards. He didn't turn into that. The pass catching didn't get there like you had hoped or the team had hoped. But they had him they could have had him very cheap, and then instead they took that a late pick. I don't remember what the pick was from Minnesota, but it was like, well, why not just keep Jordan Mason if they're going to draft someone? That would say they're concerned about Garendo, who they took in the 3rd round, who was like, he at least flashed on the field. I don't know if they look at what he'd put on the field and say that's good running back play, because we like exciting plays, but sometimes that's not what a coach is looking for.
At 6 is Achane. Some variety in our rankings here. I'm at 6, Jason at 9, Mike, you're at 6 with me.
Nervous here.
The fun fact I looked up on Achane, no one in the NFL targeted more on early downs than Achane. 70 targets ahead of Kamara, Bijan, Brees. So 70 targets, early downs, weird offense, everything changed for Miami. Passing game, it's elite for Achane, but
is Tua healthy?
Yeah.
How many games?
I think the way they're running this offense, 17. The way they're running this offense, Tua will stay upright.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I've got him lower is just because you've got the variability of health issues here. Achane himself has dealt with injuries. His rookie season, he was injured a lot. But there's the Tua factor. Like, if Tua goes down, you had 6 games without Tua, and you had a player who with Tua had 19.5 fantasy points per game. Without Tua was 7.7. You stack the box, you don't worry. That doesn't work for Achane. The targets went from 6.5 targets per game to 2.2 without Tua.
You don't have confidence in Zach Wilson back there?
I don't.
Because that would be one of the things is they were so inept at quarterback after after Tua got hurt. Achane's going to be one of those, let's see what happens at the draft.
Yep.
I had people coming out after we talked about Jalen Wright being a swing and a miss, very upset that we didn't give him more time to develop.
Huh? So, they won't remember who that is at the end of this year.
So at number 7, we have Kyren Williams. I've got him at 10. I didn't know this was
Didn't know you hated him.
Controversial.
Oh, that's spicy.
I didn't hate him because Sleeper has him at RB12.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. The world hates him.
Let me tell you the reason why.
Oh God, is he returning punts again?
No, but I deserve that. Here's the reason why. J.K. Dobbins averaged more receiving yards per game than Kyren. I read that, and I had to go make sure I wasn't reading a lie. He averaged 11 receiving yards a game. That's a third worst of 34 qualified running backs. But he's a red zone monster. He was the number 1 in touches inside the red zone, 4.7. All running backs considered. He got more touches per game inside the red zone than anybody else. But I'm just pointing out when players don't catch the football, which Kyren doesn't. That's a almost nothing, right? 11.4 per game. You're at the bottom of the list. You're below J.K. Dobbins, who we know doesn't catch the football.
Well, and reminder, the average of a top 15, they're averaging 47 catches.
Right. So, I mean, it's just he's not – he's a red zone monster, but his efficiency in the receiving game stuff hasn't been there.
It wasn't there this past season.
Yeah,
I would agree. The year prior, he only played 12 games. So the numbers, while they're seemingly about the same both years, on a per-game basis, they were much better. He was on pace for 45 receptions, 300 receiving yards. That's fine to add in. So we know he's got the ability to do it. Obviously, it's kind of like Saquon, right? Saquon didn't catch the ball much last year, wasn't involved in the passing game, and it worked for him. Saquon clearly is a great pass-catching running back. It's kind of how I feel about Kyren Williams. I don't worry that he can't be utilized when needed in that capacity. He's not game scripted out. I don't feel like they're bringing someone else in to be like, hey, if we've got to throw this ball a lot, Kyren, you're off the field.
Well, we should be honest about how they've decided to run the offense, because you have an entire year of it. There are multiple games he played an entire game and got no targets.
Sure.
So I mean,
how did he do it for fantasy football in those games?
Well, he had a good year.
Yeah.
I'm not discounting his year at all. We're talking receiving work. I'm just not leaning on 2 years ago to tell me it's prescriptive for him getting more work when you got 17 games this year where you didn't get that kind of work.
He is this is for one of these players that that's how it can go wrong. Like for Kyren, he is more susceptible to you just shave off 3 touchdowns here. And
you're outside the top 10.
Yeah, and now you're not. It's not terrible. I mean, especially where he's going at his ADP, but it would be terrible for our current projection.
44th in explosive run rate, so just 1.9% of carries. 45th in fumbles, 34th in yards per carry. So yeah, if you don't have backstop is all I mean with Kyren.
Yes,
he's been amazing.
We need a contract,
but there's no compensation for a lack of touchdowns if it were to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was looking this morning, just for any update on the contract information. He's wanting around 14, 15 mil a year. He's not going to get that. So the nice thing is it's Drew Rosenhaus, so he will get paid.
Might be shorter term deal though.
Sure, I don't care. Just pay the man and give him a bunch of opportunities.
And
That's
Blake, and I still like Blake Corum, so you don't know how that involvement will change. But he's ranked 7 for a reason. He finished at 6 last year. He deserves it.
ADP 12 in the 4th round. So currently I'm in.
We'll take a break. We got more names. At number 8 in our early running back rankings, we've got Bucky Irving.
I hate this.
You do.
I feel like we're giving him proper respect. Like I honestly do.
Yeah.
At 8.
And you hate that.
And I hate that ADP, at least this is sleeper. ADP is 2 spots ahead of where we have him.
He was.
And that feels like
we don't like him.
Yeah, it feels like that, and then it's going to we're going to create this margin of error for Bucky Irving that's impossible to hit.
He's 22 years old. Stability on the offense is there. His explosiveness is outrageous. He averaged 2.7 yards after contact per carry. So you remember Saquon was number 1 in yards before contact. Bucky was number 1 out of 44 running backs in yards after contact per carry. You've got margin and room for the offensive line to make improvements. Big plays. From week 10 on, he was the RB7. That might speak to your point, Mike, about he doesn't have a lot of room for error here.
Right.
But could Bucky Irving finish as the RB2 or 3? I think he could. I do think that's in the range of outcomes for Bucky Irving. I think he could be that good.
I think he is talented enough. I don't think that's in his range of realistic outcomes because you got Rashad Dick White there. Right. He's not going away.
That hit kind of hard.
That's on you,
yeah,
dude.
You made his name.
I don't think I ever said it quite like that.
No,
I never said it as a sentence, like with Dick in the middle.
Yeah. And you've also got Sean Tucker, who they like and they utilize. So Bucky is the primary back here. They love Bucky Irving. I think he's going to get the
and
majority.
They've come out and said like that's our
yes,
guy.
He's going to get the majority of the work, but he's not going to get all of the work. He's not built for that, and they have 2 other quality backs on the roster right now. So I love Bucky, but he doesn't. I just don't know if the workload is guaranteed there the way it is for some of the players around him.
I
I think it's pretty
I
guaranteed.
think he's got 275 on the ground.
You think he's got 275 carries on the ground?
I would bet you that he will have 275 carries sans injury.
I think I would take that bet.
Yeah. Well, we can do it.
All right. Let's do it.
Water bet.
Just for some additional context here, as soon after the bye week, so they were talking weeks 12 through 18, that's 7 games played, he would have been on a pace of 270 attempts, but that also includes
he's got a full
week
injury
14
game.
where he carried the ball 4 times.
But that's because was it the week before that? Was that the Mummy game?
It might have been. I don't remember.
Week 13, how many carries did
25.
he have? Yeah, he was used and abused in that game. I remember he was so good.
Yeah.
But then
and mind you, in those games, 12, 11, 17, and 15, those were carry counts for Rachaad White in some of those games.
Yeah,
so
let's stop doing that.
I think it's going to work out really well for Bucky Irving. I
do too, but I don't like that ADP.
I know we want to pull back, but the reason it's there is because there aren't, to me, a lot of names that I know are going to bring me a guarantee, and I think Bucky's in that category.
His talent is unquestionable from what he put on film last year.
You can't even question it.
No, go ahead, try.
I just tried, and it wouldn't let me. Jonathan Taylor at number 9. Jason's the highest with him at 7. I'm at 9. Mike at 10. He's at 9 in ADP. We know how talented he is. He's only 26 years old still. He had a great monster-sized end of the year. I mean, we're talking 29 carries, 32 carries, 34 carries. They basically said, we got nothing else we can do.
Yes,
and he was
exactly
so
what they did.
good. He was so good. You realize his last 5 games, he would have been on a season-long pace of 2,458 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's a – you've got questions at quarterback, right? You don't know if it's Jones or Richardson. Neither sound great. Daniel Jones was not a boon for Saquon in New York. You've got some weird outlier stat numbers here. Among 46 qualified running backs with 100-plus carries, 42nd out of 46 in forced missed tackle rate, 44th in yards after contact per attempt, and then he was actually stuffed the most of any running back in football on 3rd and short, including more than Ramondre. And he fumbled 4 times, which is a bit of an issue. So he's also become less relevant as a pass catcher as the years have gone by. The last 2 years, it's gone down. Yeah. So those would be the warts.
Anthony Richardson gets scary from a passing volume
from a target volume and from a winning games perspective.
Sure, both.
From an accurate target perspective.
Yeah. I think the thing you love about Jonathan Taylor is that he, in and of himself, is obviously super talented. He's been the running back 1 for fantasy in the past, and he projects to get the vast majority of the work in the backfield. So that's why, I've got him ahead of Bucky. I would rather have the big-bodied back who's going to get all of his team's carries than a maybe just as talented back in Bucky Irving, who's 195 pounds and has 2 other capable backs on the roster.
You said backs a lot. That was 3. You got a triple back. Josh Jacobs.
He caught 58% of his targets.
Yeah.
You catch an Anthony Richardson
target.
I dare you.
I dare you to.
I'm not putting this on Jonathan Taylor, who, as a rookie, caught 36 of 39 targets. I'm saying, jeez Louise, man. It's like the easiest throw on the football field. He's right there.
We got to get Anthony Richardson.
He's right in front of you.
Learning how to do the underhand throw. You know what I mean? Like
the Rick Barry of the NFL?
Yes, exactly. Just a granny throw. Just toss it to him. Toss it forward.
No quarterback has ever switched to a Rick Barry style throw
yet.
But
hey, if you want to save your career, just underhand that
granny style.
Float it.
Yeah. All right, Josh Jacobs. Jason and I have him at 8. Mike wanted to take a dump on him, put him at 13.
That's right. Hate.
He broke the 2nd most tackles in the NFL, which was 2 short of Derrick Henry. And those 2 guys were in a completely other tier, almost 15 more than James Conner, who's in 3rd place. So he arrived in Green Bay and delivered everything a running back should deliver. So everything that they signed him for, everything that you hoped you were getting if you were Green Bay, 14 rushing touchdowns inside the 10, workhorse, He was the real consistency on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
The wide receivers, they couldn't figure themselves out for fantasy. You couldn't trust Jordan Love last year. You didn't even, I mean, you got a little whiff of tight end performance for fantasy in Green Bay, but it was Jacobs.
Yeah. Now, are you concerned about the every other year history of Josh Jacobs? He's a real red light, green light situation.
If his red lights are RB14 or 18, it's not the end of the world for a guy
at RB7.
I mean, it's not good.
That's not great.
It's not good, but
Now,
I mean,
do you know how many running backs the Packers have brought in for top 30 visits? Mike, do you know? You've been on this.
I would love to know.
Off the top of my head, I don't.
0.
It is 0.
Yeah, you've got other problems on that team. Go fix those. Also, those green light, red light performances, he had a couple of years there that were 13 games out of 17 games played, or 15 out of 17. So his fantasy finish maybe a little bit deceptive there. Always a shortened season is what I'm saying for his bad performances.
Sure.
We know what you're getting with Josh Jacobs. You want two of the least sexy picks. Just take Henry and Jacobs and win your league.
Yeah, no, I think that those will be good. Henry is being drafted that way, though.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
Jacobs is at RB7.
You won't get both. All right. Chase.
Yeah, that was my reasoning for being lower. Like once the stats are in, I'm guessing Josh Jacobs won't be as low as 13 for me, but it's a regression of touchdowns, and not just because like he scored so many of them. It was the Green Bay Packers went from 24% of their touchdowns in 2023 to 45% of their touchdowns came on the ground. Like this was a huge swing. This had we've seen how this coaching staff has handled it before, and they tend to be on the higher side of passing touchdowns. So I'd be on the side betting that will regress. That doesn't mean Jacobs is a bad pick, but I think that it'll swing back to more passing touchdowns than what we had last year.
11 is Chase Brown. We talked about him at the beginning. It will change dramatically if the Bengals take a running back. It's not a guarantee that they will. He was the RB5 from week 9 on. You have an offense you have a tremendous amount of confidence in.
They're going to score so many points.
So many points. And Chase Brown is very good. He's very versatile. He can catch the football. He can be a target for Joe Burrow. We're just on rookie watch right now, I think. I think he played enough games for us all to say, hey, that's a good player.
Yeah, if they don't draft a rookie, he will be very, very high.
Will he move up in your rankings, you think?
He might. Right now I've got him at 11. I mean, that's an RB1. Perhaps when we stat him out post the NFL draft, he'll be higher. But as of now, that's probably where I really only see his ability to fall. Like if they draft a rookie, he could tumble.
I feel like some of the outlook on Chase Brown might be similar to how we were with Kyren Williams after he kind of broke out.
Sure.
Where it was like, okay, do we have that confidence going into year 2?
It's very similar because Chase Brown's a day 3 guy, just like Kyren Williams was, where you're like,
that's how he feels.
Is he going to hold on to that starter spot?
I think the difference is Kyren Williams, college tape. Like I remember we loved Kyren Williams.
Yes, we did.
We thought he was unbelievable in college, and then he just tumbled in the draft and then had a back seat. I don't remember ever feeling like Chase Brown was some amazing prospect that just
no, but I mean on the field last year he was amazing.
Yeah, he was.
I think what happened with Kyren is the draft capital made us doubt him going into year 2 that the team would be committed. Now Kyle gave us this number: if a team uses 2+ top 30 visits on running backs, which the Bengals have done, 71% of the time over the last decade, they take a running back in the first 4 rounds. So if you want to get out in Dynasty on Chase Brown on that number, this is your moment.
I would definitely be – if I had Chase Brown, I would be shopping around to see if I could get a big trade for him. Because if you can maximize on his current perceived workhorse value, you might not be able to in every league. But if you can, great. Because even if he's great, whatever, your trade compensation should be great. But he has the ability to really go poof.
50-50 shot in the first 3 rounds that team takes a running back. James Cook comes in at 12 on our rankings. We've all got him similarly ranked. He's RB13 on Sleeper. One thing that I found interesting about James Cook, he was the single worst fourth quarter runner in EPA per play in the entire NFL.
Tuckered out.
So you better get him early because he was the #1 first down running back in EPA per play. So when they're in that part of the game that they love running the football, he wasn't great in the fourth quarter. They had a lot of games put away. They used other players, but 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Didn't get extended this offseason.
He is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I mean, it was
the work went down. Targets went down, rushing attempts, rushing yards. I mean, his yards per attempt was actually slightly up, but his attempts is down. But you go from 2 touchdowns on the ground to 16. I loved James Cook going into last year.
He was a my guy.
He was a my guy, and he fully feels like a touchdown variance just bounced in the correct direction to totally bail that out, because 200 carries for 1,000 with 32 receptions for 250 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground, you're like, man, James Cook really let me down, because he had 16 rushing touchdowns and he's the RB8.
It's
That's
the
crazy.
exact inverse of who he was his entire career.
Yes.
The only thing that you could be confident in is he's not going to get rushing touchdowns. And then 16 rushing touchdowns ties O.J. Simpson's record. It's a wildly efficient season, a very good season. If you had him, you were happy. I agree completely. He's scary. He's not a bell cow workload situation. He's a talented player.
I think they're content using multiple backs.
They
Yes.
100% are.
At 13 is Joe Mixon. Mike has him down at 19. I'm at 11 on the other end of the
Get out of here,
spectrum.
Joe.
This was the number 1 running back in all of fantasy for the first 11 weeks of the season.
Yeah, he looked real good.
I mean, he also was
He did.
right behind Kyren in touches per game in the red zone. So he averaged 4.2 chances to score inside the red zone per game, which is awesome. The Houston offense, it disintegrated down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit tough because we've looked at C.J. Stroud and we've kind of said, what happened? But I feel like it's been kind of in front of our face when you have injuries to Diggs, Collins, and Dell. Those hurt your offense. And so your opportunities per game in the red zone for Joe Mixon, which is where he was making his hay, those went away. He is older, so I think
He'll be playing at the age of 29.
I just think that the default reaction is going to be, okay, he started hot, got old, and then died off. And I think it's more nuanced than that with how the offense lost other pieces. He was hurt multiple times, dealing with a high ankle sprain. To me, this is like Josh Jacobs light in the sense that the Packers and the Texans both have their running back situation figured out. They did it last offseason. They paid him. Nothing's changing.
Joe Mixon's still under contract for 2 more years. He is their primary guy and will receive a massive workload for what could be a very good offense. I am much, much more in the camp that Joe Mixon's going to be very, very good for fantasy. He's a found pick right now. That is delightful.
Yeah, I like that.
My big worry is simply that this was a bad offensive line that seemed like what they did is they got all their bad offensive linemen together and then they said, you're all fired, which I get that because you guys sucked, but they didn't have anyone else to.
And then they said, hey, the good one, we're going to trade you to Washington.
You're gone. So I'm really scared about this offensive line situation.
It seems like it can't get much worse. So you'd hope they spin on draft day. We'll be watching that. Kenneth Walker comes in at 14. Mike's got him at 12. I'm at 16. This is the weirdest dude.
He's very strange. It is.
I'm looking up Kenneth Walker numbers, and I'm not looking for bad. I'm just looking for truth.
But they're there, though.
And his 4.4 yards from scrimmage per touch was 6th worst in the NFL. His 3.9 a carry versus just base defenses, worst runner in the league against base defenses. 3.2 yards per carry in the first half last year. So if the team's throwing in the second half, in the first half he did nothing. And he did involve himself in the passing game. He's capable.
He caught 46 passes in wait, how many games did he
actually? The numbers and the numbers and the
games.
eyeballs don't match up for Kenneth Walker to me because I feel like he's the same twitchy elite talent in the backfield, but he did get really inefficient last year. And now you got a new offensive coordinator who you think is going to emphasize the run. Now you hope he's out there. He's injury prone. This range of outcomes for Kenneth Walker freaks me out. Mike, talk me into it.
It's hard to talk you into him because I am aware. Like I said, we're doing vibes checks. These are not our UDK stat projections for these guys, where the numbers do the talking for us, even if it can be upsetting. And I am well aware that my love of Kenneth Walker and my disdain for Joe Mixon, it is about as terrible as you can go. It's just not. It's disingenuous. Of every argument I make against Joe Mixon, you could just judo throw that thing right back at me and be like, "Well, that's Ken Walker," and I'll be like, "Yeah, but it's not."
Yeah,
because I like Ken Walker. So it's hard of it's what you're saying, Andy, of watching Kenneth Walker play. You're like, this is an exciting guy, and it's hard to see it. It's hard to see it bounce the right way. But he's the type of player to me that if it bounced right, Kenneth Walker's a top 5 fantasy running back at the end of the year.
Do you agree that this is kind of a defining year for him for
career,
our expectations and for his career? Because it feels like we could say, okay, he's not what we thought he was if this year doesn't go well.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair and it's contract year. So this is everything for him. Like, he needs to play his way into more money. And what's wild about Ken Walker, because it's, like over the course of his career, if you've had him, I think it's been more good than not, where year one it took some time for him to take over, but then he did, and he was like, he really, really helped your team win. And the next year it felt disappointing, and except points per game rookie year and sophomore year were about the same. And then he had more points per game this past year. And you're like, dude, you're killing me.
Well, in a different way too, like being more effective in the passing game. Like, it's going to be a very interesting year for Ken Walker. I'm happy this guy is our number 15 and made it into the list here. Chuba Hubbard sneaks in at 15. He's got some really weird receiving numbers that I thought I'd throw out there. His 3.2 yards per target is the worst in the league over the last 2 years, and his 4.9 yards per reception was worst in the league over the last 2 years. So, to me, I've now pictured a man that catches the football and falls to the ground. The truth of Chuba is that he is just a fantastic interior, bona fide between the tackles running back. And he gets touches in the red zone. He's a workload guy. I don't think we believed any of these things about him when he was the backup for Christian McCaffrey. I don't think we believed he could evolve into this kind of a player that got a big contract, that could deliver big numbers. From weeks 3 to 16, he was the RB7. So he is not going to be drafted highly, period, for fantasy. He will not be drafted where he could finish.
I agree with that. I'm glad we're giving him the respect that he has earned. I do worry a little bit about the workload. He was such a massive workload guy that if that took a hit, that could be really problematic. This is a team who has brought in 3 running backs on top 30 visits. So they are, you said 50-50 chance of a top 3 pick for a team that brought in 2. They've brought in 3. Dude, and I don't know that they know about the future of Jonathan Brooks.
That would be that's what's so painful about that decision is you paid Chuba, Jonathan Brooks, you just spent a high pick on.
Yeah, but I think that
then they let go of Miles Sanders.
I think that for them,
brought in Rico Dowdle. I'll say it.
Brought in Rico Dowdle. No, they did.
Yeah,
1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah,
if they were to draft, an RJ Harvey or something in the 4th round, I could see him coming in and getting not work where Chuba is not the primary lead back, but they need to not give him 350 opportunities.
There's no way they won't take a player that makes you worried about Chuba, because everything about Chuba's career is always it shouldn't work. The last 2 years, nothing about Chuba Hubbard's situation, bad team, right? We just looked at numbers. You're supposed to play for a good team to produce for fantasy.
Yep.
They draft Jonathan Brooks. There goes Chuba, not valuable. Then he gets a bunch of money at the end of the year, so they'll probably draft somebody you love.
This is the time that I want to respect Chuba. Not draft season. You know what I mean? When draft season rolls around, y'all can have them.
Yeah, all right. So there's our top 15. We also, I wanted to give you a quick opportunity to name a player that we didn't mention that you still think could finish in that top 15.
David Montgomery will be a top 15 running back on a points per game basis.
Nice finish to the sentence.
You said quick?
Yeah, but do you believe he could finish as a top 15?
I think he will finish as a top 15 running back, yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to go with Breece Hall to shine a small light of joy in Breece Hall's time on the show. That's not a phrase. Second most running back receptions in football since 2023.
Currently being drafted at running back 10.
Yeah, I see it. I see it being okay. I see it being okay.
Yeah, that's certainly good. I mean,
he's RB10, and he's.
I mean,
not
you
in
won't draft him.
He's not in our top 15.
No, he's not in our top 15. I think that's just because he finished as the running back 17 this last
year.
For
what it's worth,
good.
he's at 18 in our list behind Kamara and Connor right now.
Yeah, James Conner is the guy I would highlight.
Jason ranked him 57th, so that's why he didn't average out.
James Conner is.
That's your name?
Yeah, of the group of like the old guys where they're kind of dead zone running backs. James Conner is someone who I can't see a way right now where I abandon James Conner and be like, this guy, he should just be an incredible value pick yet again.
Yeah. I mean, he is very, very important to the team.
He is the running back room. Trey Benson did not step up. I don't think that they'll spend draft capital on another running back. Like I think
they like Trey based on what I hear Kyler talk about.
Right, and they'll try to work him in. But the Cardinals will be a team that they'll be in that win threshold. They'll be right around 7 to 9, I'll give them 8, whatever, 8 wins or so. They'll find a way to get that, and then James Conner will just be this workhorse yet again.
All right, on Thursday we're going to go through our early top 15 wide receiver rankings, and so you can look forward to that. If you have a minute and you want to help the show out, we always appreciate a follow on your podcast app or a subscribe button over on YouTube. You can watch the show over there. And you can find us on socials, on X, at the FF Ballers, on Instagram, at instagram.com/fantasyfootballers. And, of course, the UDK is available for pre-order, ultimatedraftkit.com. That is it for today. We'll catch you on Thursday.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @the FF Ballers.